Hi, and welcome to another episode of Kuntarkis. My name is Michael Yon, and here is Kuntarkis with the episode Planet Szarberous.
I was with Father last night in the most unusual way. And he actually came for me, and we went through lots of portholes, his types of portholes. And where we ended up, which is very interesting, if we look at Dorothea is roughly 900 to 960,000 light years from planet Earth. The planet that I'm going to talk about briefly is about twice that distance from planet Earth. So it's basically another 900,000 light years from, say, Dorothea. So that's a pretty long distance, mate. It's very far away. Now, the year, I'm just trying to work out the year. And it was before he created the four essences of myself, my sister, and my two brothers from his own essence. And I think it was about 32,000 years of human time before he actually created the essences of us. And that's one of the big reasons why he decided to actually do that. The planet that he took me to has changed a lot in that time. It's a really loving and heart-warming type civilization to what it was back then. That's 32,000 years prior, 3.83 million. Do you understand that?
Yeah, 3.83 million years ago. Yep.
So an extra 32,000 on top of that before we were created. And he found out through certain ones there were a lot of very negative actions that were occurring on that planet. And I think the name of the planet, I had it, but it's a strange name. It's like Szarberous. That's it. Szarberous. The planet Szarberous. Now, that's the planet. Now, the beings, this is going to be really strange. The beings there evolved from their oceans over 9-point-something million years of their own evolution. They came out of the ocean, similar to what a lot of things came out of the ocean on planet Earth. They became a creature quite large. When I say large, I'm talking like, say, maybe a foot long or something like that, 30 centimeters. And they eventually evolved. And they evolved over 11 million year period. Once they came out of the ocean, a further 11 million years of human time. And what they ended up was a being that stood probably about my height, maybe a fraction taller, quite thinly built. Their shoulders were very different. You know where our arms are on our shoulder?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Their arms were down about 10 centimeters off their shoulder. But the difference was they had 4 arms. And I've never come across that in my existence. So they had 4 arms. 2 arms were shorter, which were the ones that were below the shoulder, and the other 2 were slightly longer. And they could move their arms independently or all at the same time perfectly. That was interesting. So they had a very high consciousness within their own cellular structure. They had no belly button like we do. They were very flat from the chest down to their genitals. They did have genitals, male genitals as well as female. You know what? They didn't have a bottom. Their bottom was very flat, not rounded like most of us on planet Earth. Their leg shapes were the same at the hips all the way down to their feet. and their feet were actually quite large compared to ours with their feet structure. They looked okay when you looked at them. Now, the interesting factor is they evolved from all over their planet, from different oceans. And like we have Asians, Europeans, we have Westerners, and probably a few other things in between, well, they end up having the same sort of structure when it came to beings, people, whatever you want to call them. They had hair, but their hair grew, you know how I've seen it on cartoons, but their hair grew out of the center of their head, sort of high up, and then fell down, only in those two directions, from left to right. And they didn't have a lot of hair in the back of their head, and their hair in the front wasn't like us. It sort of sat back, but it's sort of like a pot plant growing up and then just bending down. That's what their hair was like. And their hair was all different colors, like humanity. We went from blonde to sandy gray to black to sandy black. Just all different colors, quite incredible. Like a brown, and that was that. Their eyes were very small, very small. Their nostril was not like ours, shaping down. Theirs were, if you looked at them, you could see two holes. It was the way it was. Their nose sort of went down into their lip, but they had two holes, which was their breathing. They breathed air just like we did. Yes, they only had one lung. So they were some kind of a creature that I have no idea what they were, but they lived in the ocean, and here they are, very differently shaped to us. And they wear clothes. They create their own clothes. They have technology, but it's not fantastic technology. They don't fly in space as yet. Probably in another, say, 500,000 years, they might. But they don't. But they're very intelligent. They're very friendly now, that is. Now, this is a story. As they evolved all over the planet, they created cultures, all separate cultures. They created belief systems, whatever they may be. They created all forms of different ways of living, different types of houses that they lived in. They created like something like a horse carriage there for a period of time. Then they created a vehicle, and I think the vehicle actually ran on water. It created heat, which created steam, which created motivation. Not motivation, what's the word?
Motion.
Motion, sorry, thank you, motion. So that was something like that. They lived peacefully for a very long period of time, probably several million years in their evolution. Then came corruption. Some of the societies around their entire planet, and their planet wasn't big, it was smaller than Earth, probably about half the size, or maybe a little bit more than half the size of Earth. They had beautiful landscapes. They have beautiful rainforests, vegetation. They're farmers. They grew their vegetables. They are carnivores. Yes, they are. But they don't eat of animals. They only eat of creatures from the sea or the fresh water, which must be like fish and things like that. That's what Father was telling me. But their negativity grew. Now, if we look at Earth the way Earth is, with what is going on, with all our different cultures, that's why cultures would never really exist together in a very big way, because we eventually battle because of our belief systems. They were the same. They communicated, they were friendly, but they were very adamant about what they believed in. They had a very strong, but also a very stubborn character in many forms. The interesting factor is When they started to get together more and more and more, it created tremendous amounts of disharmony. Some of the other civilizations moved in. They allowed this. And they brought in their own belief systems, their own way of thinking, their own way of life. And it created a lot of disharmony in many areas of certain civilizations that lived more in harmony than they did. Eventually, it created so much tension, there were outbreaks of violence all over the planet. There was also sexual perverted things going on that they brought, and they mixed it in with other cultures, which became a real issue. They had no such thing as the monetary system. What they did have was like a barter type system that we had on Earth at one time, similar to that. And that's how they did things. But the corruption became so bad that people were dying. They were being murdered, just like they are today. When you opened your mouth, they would go and murder you. Well, they did it on this planet also. It got to a point where a lot of people were being, say, raped. Children were being sold. All that. Exactly what it is on Earth today. So bad. That's what it was. And this is going back a long time ago, by the way. So Father was called in and he observed them. He became one of them. He changed his structure and he became one of them. He even created his own home so he could watch and observe. And that's what he did silently. And he saw the truth. He felt the energy. He understood what was happening. So he made a decision. The planet that he would, not at the moment, but back then, that he would go and visit, where there was another civilization only on one side of the planet, he went back to this planet and he discussed it with certain ones, and they came up with a decision of yes. And what he did, they had 17 million on that entire planet at that time. 17 million. That was it. That was a lot as far as they're concerned. He took exactly 8.2 something million of those beings all in one go and made them go through a massive porthole that he created away from all the townships. So the people gathered, never said a word. They knew exactly where they were going and what was going to happen. So they all went through there. Once they were on the other planet, he said, live in peace, live in harmony, and just be, and I'll be back soon. He went back to the planet. I'm not sure how long it took or whatever. That was never shown to me. But he went back to the planet, and what he did was very interesting. And I think you know what he did. He vaporized every life form that was on that planet that was left. Because over all those years, in their own evolution, the nastiness, the murdering, the raping, and all the other conspiracies that were going on were within all those beings. Even the ones that were good to begin with, it brought up negative aspects within their DNA, and they became, over a period of time, just like the bad ones, just like it's happening here on Earth. And it's got worse and worse. We have so many now, everywhere. He vaporized everything. He even scouted the entire planet. For how long, I'm not sure. And he discovered other ones that were hiding and vaporized them all. He cleansed the planet completely of all negative energies, which was such a blessing. And I was so proud of him for doing that he made that decision to help the society. Once the planet became perfectly balanced in harmony, he went back, created the doorway, and he brought them all back onto the planet. They all had their homes to go to, and everything flourished. Over the next million years, he observed them, and everything was in harmony and perfect balance because the nastiness of all the sickness and the perversion and the greed was gone. The energy was gone, vaporized, no longer to exist ever. And the pool of life had the energy back within it, in their dimension. So I saw all that. I saw exactly how it all happened. He showed me everything. And it was so quick, and yet I caught everything. And I was just flabbergasted by it all. And we had a sit down on his planet that he created just recently. We went back to his planet, and we sat there naturally sipping purple sake tea, and we discussed things about Earth. And I said, Earth is exactly like that, but probably 20 times worse when it comes to the CPCs. And he looked at me for a moment and he said, I'm a little confused, my son. Can you explain that to me? And I said, the CPCs, cannibalistic, pedophile, criminals. I said, that's what I've named them. And he says, oh. And he said, what do you think should happen? I said, well, the plan is between 140 to 180 years. He said, yes. And he said, is that the time? I said, yes. It's giving Earth the time factor because things are changing and the manipulants are helping to make those changes for the better. But getting rid of those perverted criminals is going to be something different, because I don't think governments will, whoever the governments are going to be then, will want to say put them all to death. But the only way to change a society is to purge out the evil. And when you purge out the evil, you change society, you change the thinking, and you change their life. And that's the most important factor. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you saw this planet as it is now as well, as you met them.
Yes.
For real? Yeah.
No, I haven't met them. No.
Oh, no.
No, we didn't go down there. No. But he brought the planet's projectiveness into view, so I could see everything and how they were living and all that type of stuff. And it was really amazing. Really amazing. So that's, and I think what Father was trying to show me, I think he was showing me that it can be done, and in time factor, it will be done. But sometimes you have to wait to see what a society will do to try and eradicate the badness within itself. If it doesn't, it means we aren't willing to learn. We aren't willing to grow. Sometimes to be negative, the outcome becomes positive. And I know for a fact when Father comes with Kanag and Kalusha and even Nakris and a few of the other different societies, I believe that when that happens, it'll be the best thing that's ever happened to Earth.
Yeah, the most major turnaround for the most major positive move for the future.
Yeah. I mean, you look at President Trump and his associates that are helping. There's never been a president that's done so much, and he's actually doing the right thing. He wants to change America to make America powerful the way it was before these morons came into existence. And it's very interesting about ex-President Biden. He's actually riddled with cancer, especially bowel cancer, which means hatred for oneself. Isn't that interesting?
Mm.
If we look at it metaphysically, he's created all this cancer in his body, his brain, and his bowels, because he hates himself so much for what he's done to the people of planet Earth, especially to the Americans. He's allowed himself to follow the ugliness of the elite criminals. So he deserves what he gets. Pain. And sometimes through pain, Michael, we actually can learn.
Sure, yeah. So we're going to have to, on this planet, go through quite a bit more pain and hopefully learn before things turn around in 100 and something years.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Because look what we created. I know we've said this so many times. Look what we created. 157,000 violent, brutal wars. Killed over 19 billion humans. Slaughtered them, raped them, ate them. Look what we got today. We have probably 60% of the acting world being cannibals, pedophiles, such sick rot. So that's what you got to get rid of. You cannot just say, "Oh, I'm going to put him in jail for 10 or 20 years." It doesn't work. That does not work. The only thing that works is purging the evil energy from that society, so it never ever incarnates again. That's how you grow consciously. That's how we as a race called human will be able to connect with our pineal gland and travel the universe, project our spirit and travel the universe wherever we want to go, do whatever we want to do, make wealth, help each other. That's what a true society does. And I think that's why Father took me to this planet now last night to show me how positive their society has become when you purge the society of all the evil.
Yeah, because you said it's been good for a million years.
Yeah.
Wow, that's unexpected for me. That's amazing.
Yeah, no violence, mate.
Wow.
And they all work for each other. They all work for each other. And that's the interesting factor. But the journey last night was really interesting. The best part was naturally going back to his planet and sitting so comfortably amongst the most beautifulest rainforests with the most beautiful bird sounds. You know how you get a lot of birds and they make really croaky sounds, right? And that's really irritating. And they vibrate through you, which is really irritating. But these birds that were actually making this beautiful song or songs, and they all seem to be doing it all at the same time. It's like, I was thinking to myself, it's like Father must say, "Sing nicely, birds."
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, yes.
I said, "I really admire you, my Father, for what you have done, becoming who you are." And he said to me, "You will be the same. Will you enjoy?" I said, "Absolutely."
This concludes another episode of Kuntarkis. If you'd like to find out more about Kuntarkis, find his website, which is etcconsciousness.com. He has articles there, he has his books listed there, and also if you have any reason to contact us in general for any reason, just email kuntarkis@gmail.com. That's it for now. Thanks so much for listening. My name is Michael Yon, and stay tuned for more.